Welcome to the Deep Dive Books channel, where we hope you find something valuable every day.
Today, we start discussing a book, published in October 2023, titled, A Brief History of Intelligence, Evolution, AI, and the 5 Breakthroughs That Made Our Brains. I've been wanting to cover this book for a while, but it's a bit challenging. We spent a lot of time to refine the material, and waited until we felt confident enough to start. This book is highly significant. Some on Twitter have called it the most guiding book for AI research in the age of large models. To me, it rivals Stephen Wolfram's What is ChatGPT Doing? And Why Does It Work? Wolfram explores intelligence from a mathematical perspective, while this book takes a biological approach. I've read some reviews of the book, and some people have compared this book to Yuval Harari's Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, Robert Sapolsky's Behave, and some have even said it's a paradigm shift in neuroscience. Despite its importance, the author, Max Bennett, is quite young and not a scientist. He is an entrepreneur and researcher in the AI field. This is Bennett's first book, yet it's remarkably insightful. Not only is the content fresh and thought-provoking, but the writing is also elegant, indicating the author's intelligence. Bennett founded a company called LUCA, which uses machine learning to predict consumer behavior, serving large corporations. He repeatedly encountered a question. Why can AI excel at tasks like playing Go, but struggle with simple tasks, like washing dishes? To create truly intelligent robots, Bennett needed to understand human intelligence and the limitations of current large language models. With no ready answers available, he wrote this book because he wanted to read it. Bennett conducted extensive research, consulted experts, conducted his own studies, and even published papers on neuroscience. This led him to a grand ambition. That ambition is to establish a new framework for understanding the brain. Previously, there was a well-known framework called the Triune brain hypothesis, proposed by American neuroscientist Paul MacLean in the 1960s. This framework is still referenced in many popular science books. It suggests that the human brain is composed of 3 layers. The reptilian brain, responsible for basic survival instincts. The limbic system, responsible for emotions. And the neocortex, providing language and abstract thinking capabilities. Although the triune brain hypothesis is attractive, it is incorrect, and has been abandoned by scientists. Reptiles do not have only a reptilian brain. They also have their own limbic systems. These systems are not clearly hierarchical, and many functions overlap between different networks. Moreover, brain evolution is not a simple layering process. The true complexity of the brain exceeds our imagination. For example, in just 1 cubic millimeter of the brain, there are over 1 billion neuron connections, with each neuron being less than 30 micrometers wide, too small to see clearly. To understand such complexity, we need a simplified model that reflects current scientific understanding. Bennett proposes a model called the 5 Breakthroughs. It progresses along 2 lines. First, the brain has undergone 5 major breakthroughs in its evolutionary history to reach its current state. By examining the evolution of simpler brains, we can more easily understand the complex brain we see today. Second, each breakthrough in brain evolution introduces new functions that can be compared with AI research. By looking at how AI achieves certain functions, we can better understand how the brain developed those functions. Similarly, if the brain possesses a function, we can anticipate that AI might also develop that function. Neuroscience and AI science are mutually reinforcing. Interestingly, human brains are highly similar to those of other animals. Anatomically, our brains are almost identical to chimpanzees' brains except for size. Only slightly different from rats' brains. And share structural similarities with fish brains. It seems evolution has found an optimal solution for intelligence. Understanding this optimal solution could guide us in AI development. Of course, you might argue that airplanes fly differently from birds. Indeed, AI might achieve advanced intelligence in ways very different from our brains, as silicon-based and carbon-based systems are different. But without birds, no one would have believed that something heavier than air could fly. Birds helped us imagine airplanes. Bennett's theory can be described as evolutionary neuroscience for computer scientists. In this first lecture of the series, we will discuss primitive life forms without brains. Lack of a brain does not mean lack of intelligence. These forms of intelligence are quite remarkable. There is a saying, evolution is the only success story on Earth, which I agree with. Here, we'll set aside biological details and focus on the strategic aspects of various life forms. About 4 billion years ago, Earth was lifeless. By a stroke of chance, in a volcanic vent possibly deep in the ocean, large molecules gathered and formed long molecular chains. This was DNA. According to the second law of thermodynamics, complex things are prone to damage, but DNA has a long-lasting solution. It can replicate itself. If I am gone, but my replica remains, it's as if I am still alive. This might be the first wisdom of life. However, for DNA to be considered truly alive, it needed two breakthroughs. One was the formation of a lipid bubble around it, providing protection. This was the early cell. The other was the introduction of proteins. Proteins, like tiny machines, enabled cell movement and provided some sensory abilities. These ancient cells had DNA to store replicable information and could monitor and respond to the external world to some extent. By certain definitions, this is life. Such a single-celled organism could automatically seek environments conducive to replication, such as moving away from unfavorable temperatures. Impressive, isn't it? Scientists believe that all current life on Earth shares a common ancestor, an early single-celled organism known as the last Universal Common Ancestor, LUCA. No one knows exactly what LUCA looked like, and no fossils have been found. We hypothesize it lived around 3.5 billion years ago, consisting of DNA, proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates in a single cell. LUCA had a hard life. DNA needed constant repair, proteins needed continual replenishment, and self-replication required accumulating parts. It had to work tirelessly for energy, derived from hydrogen, which is very inefficient. After a billion years, one of LUCA's descendants mutated into Cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria solved the problem of efficient energy acquisition through photosynthesis. Photosynthesis converts sunlight and carbon dioxide into sugars, which are high-density energy reserves that can be stored and used gradually. Photosynthesis produces a byproduct: oxygen. The emergence of cyanobacteria filled Earth with oxygen. Over about a billion years, cyanobacteria produced so much oxygen that they couldn't handle it. Oxygen accelerates the oxidation of cellular materials, leading to aging. This event, around 2.4 billion years ago, is known as the Great Oxidation Event. At this time, some cells evolved aerobic respiration, converting oxygen and sugars into energy while exhaling carbon dioxide. Aerobic respiration and photosynthesis thus complement each other. One reduces oxygen and increases carbon dioxide, while the other produces oxygen and removes carbon dioxide. Their balance stabilized Earth's atmosphere and enabled the persistence of life. To this day, Earth's life forms are divided into two main groups: those that perform photosynthesis and those that engage in aerobic respiration. This seems perfect, but the competitive landscape has changed dramatically. There's basically no competition between photosynthesizing organisms. They simply seek sunny places and occasionally jostle, but their interactions are generally peaceful. Aerobic respiration organisms, however, are different. Aerobic respiration requires oxygen and sugars. Oxygen is readily available, but sugars must come from other organisms. In essence, to engage in aerobic respiration, you need to consume other life forms. This is harsh, but that's nature. As the saying goes, heaven and earth are ruthless, treating all things as straw dogs. This is not about morality, but about maintaining ecological balance. Endless competition began here. Various forms of intelligence emerged, driven by the dynamics of eating and being eaten. Aerobic respiration organisms evolved into large cells called eukaryotes, over 100 times larger, capable of directly engulfing smaller cells. Eukaryotes are the common ancestors of all plants, fungi, and animals today. They evolved into multicellular organisms, as shown in this evolutionary tree. Plants return to a peaceful existence through photosynthesis, so we won't focus on them. Fungi and animals continued with aerobic respiration, needing to address the issue of consumption. Fungi, like mushrooms, feed on decaying organisms. They grow on rotten wood, dead leaves, or animal carcasses, producing hyphae to contact, and digest food externally. This process is slow, so fungi are generally peaceful, and do not require high intelligence. Animals, however, digest food internally, and need fresh sustenance. This means they must consume other life forms quickly. In other words, they need to hunt. Even grazing animals must find grass, and creatures like coral polyps must react quickly when detecting food. All forms of eating require having a place to store food, performing hunting actions, and making judgments. This leads to 3 essentials for animals: a place to store food, the stomach, the ability to move, muscles, and the ability to make judgments, neurons. Thus, we arrive at neurons, the basis for all advanced intelligence. Primitive life forms, those single-celled organisms, had some intelligence, but used chemical cascades and protein networks, which are difficult to scale. Advanced intelligence requires neurons. All animals have neurons, which vary in size and shape, but function in the same way. It was only about 100 years ago, in the 1920s, that we began to understand neurons. Several Nobel Prizes were awarded for this, and we now know. Neurons transmit electrical signals, not chemical ones, so they transmit signals quickly. Neuronal signaling is unidirectional. Neuronal signal strength is uniform. It is the frequency of neuronal signals that indicates the intensity of an event. For example, a heavier load results in a higher frequency of signals, not greater strength. The frequency adapts to the environment, allowing a limited coding system to represent various scales. Neurons are classified into excitatory and inhibitory types. Since evolution invented neurons, their mechanism of operation has never changed. Subsequent evolution only altered their connections, demonstrating how effective neurons are. The earliest animals were probably coral polyps. They essentially had a stomach, with neurons and muscles. When small creatures came close, the polyp's tentacles would quickly retract, pulling the prey into the stomach for digestion. This process involves a series of neuronal signals and muscle contractions. This represents a notable level of intelligence, but the brain was not yet present. That's all for today. In the next section, we'll discuss the first brain.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.